Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President.
What does that mean? Honestly, this right here is the worst moment of the entire debate. Let's get into it. So I did not watch the debate live. I watched the debate the next day. The reason why is that the Russians are bombing the country I'm in. Which country? It could be a few countries, but Ukraine. And due to that, the electrical grid is kind of haywire right now, and that means power outages are rolling. And a few minutes before, when I would have streamed, the power went out, so I couldn't stream. I couldn't talk about the debate. I couldn't watch the debate. Not that I would have watched the debate live, due to the fact that YouTube or Twitch could very soon DMCA my channel, take me out back, shoot me, and get rid of me like Old Yeller. And I don't want that. But I probably would have given some live commentary. Instead, I was going to settle for live tweeting, but then I passed out. So really, I failed on every front. I failed when it came to electricity. I failed when it came to what country I should have been in when it comes to streaming this debate, because power was out. I failed when it comes to falling asleep. But I mean, we didn't have internet. It was hard for me to live tweet anyway. Point is, I didn't watch it live. So that means I got to see everybody's reactions before I got to watch the debate, because I woke up, I was like, oh, I guess the debate happened. I wonder how it went. I went on Twitter, and people were not having a good time in the Biden camp, and in the Trump camp, they were doing wheelies, they were doing backflips, they were dancing the Macarena and doing the YMCA dance. They think it's all over. And so I'm like, oh, that's not good. Did Biden die on stage? And he didn't die on stage, but he didn't do good on stage either. So that was the perspective I went into it with, because my expectations for Biden were not high going into the debate. This certainly was lower than my expectations of Joe Biden, but I went into it already knowing the performance. And so maybe my view here is going to be somewhat biased by the fact that I already knew it wasn't going to be good going into it. And so maybe I braced myself a bit, and maybe that impacts my judgment. I just wanted to put that up in front and center. But also, I tried to watch it differently than I assume most people watched it. I watched it with a notebook. And I took notes. In fact, I have like 4 or 5 pages of notes in here, and it took me, I would say maybe 3.5 hours. Yeah, I'd say about 3.5 hours to get through the debate, to watch stuff, listen to stuff, be like, wait, did Trump really say that? Let me hear that again. Like, wait, what did Biden mean? Biden beat Medicare? What does that mean? And then going back and listening to it again, taking notes on everything. And I didn't take notes on everything, because if I did take notes on everything, it would have taken up my entire day, and 3.5 hours was already plenty to watch a debate that took most people an hour and a half. But I took a lot of takeaways from this. And so before we go through these notes that I took, before I talk to you about the broad conclusions, before I talk to you about the reaction and what it means for the election, I guess I should play some footage of the actual debate itself for those of you who are fortunate enough to not watch it. Now, this is not a good way, and I'm going to be honest with you, this is not a good way to retell a debate. It's not a good way to retell a debate because the first half was different than the second half. You can only fit so much in these 6-minute clips. You devoid it of a lot of the context. You devoid it of a lot of the rambling. And so on one hand, with these short second clips, you don't get all of Biden's worst moments, and you certainly don't get all of Trump's lies, deception, or his worst moments on stage when he's up there talking about like $20 billion sent to Ukraine, fantasy numbers, like 90% above what the actual rate is, crazy lies out there. I mean, we'll get into it in a second here because I wrote down a few of them. But since we can't watch the entirety of the debate, we can at least watch some of this, and then we'll go into some of the conclusions I took, go through the notes, and try to not only go, because I see most people are reacting to this mostly vibes based. We're talking about like a few key like fumbles and moments, but I do think that we should also talk about the substance and policy. And I am very annoyed about the fact that a lot of mainstream pundits treat this like a wrestling match, treat it like a boxing match, where you're screaming and kind of looking for the vibes of who's winning, who's winning the vibes game, and a lot less policy conversations. Now, that doesn't mean that you win elections off of policy conversations. I just think it's the job of journalists to try to ground the conversation and make it less vibes based and more policy fact-based and based upon what they would actually do as president. Because we stayed very far away generally in this debate from the realm of policy. We got down to their golf scores, who nobody cares about except for people in their same age demographic, or in their same wealth demographic. So it was not great. But again, we'll play a few minutes and then we'll give opinions.
What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just
now, this is one problem Biden's had a few times, and he gets something wrong, then says sorry and corrects it. See, if Trump gets something wrong, he'll just keep going. If Trump says, I added 12 trillion jobs, right, or it doesn't even say a cajillion jobs, he won't stop and be like, sorry, I meant 12 million jobs. He will instead just keep going, and he just won't care. And if he does that quick enough, because of how he jumps from topic to topic, no one will notice. But when Joe Biden gets a number wrong or throws out a wrong statistic, he'll generally speaking say sorry, go back, and it'll only make him fumble, mumble, and stutter more, which did not help him in this debate. This happened a few times, which I mean is good for accuracy, is good for the substance of the policy. It's not good for the vibes of the conversation or exuding confidence when it comes to public speaking.
24%, 25%, either one of those numbers. They'd raised $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able
one statistic he threw out there that really threw me a loop, though, and I think this is the only one he didn't stop and go back and fix, was he was talking about the jobs he created, and the job number I think he was looking for was 15 million. Now, Trump will go on and say, oh, those are bounce back jobs, and Trump will both discredit the jobs number under the Biden presidency while also claiming all of the successes of the Biden presidency, because he'll say, well, I handed over the economy, so it's also my victories. So that was very incoherent on the Trump side, and it was something that Biden should have hit him on, because it's like the idea of you can claim as as Trump from 2016 to 2020, 2020 to 24, and if he became president again, then it'd be 2024 to 2028, even though he wasn't president for those years. That's not fair. That doesn't make any sense. It wasn't Trump that dragged us out of COVID. But then Biden responds with, I added 15,000 jobs to the economy. 15,000 jobs? What do you mean 15,000 jobs? He meant 15 million. But he said 1,000, and that was the one time he didn't correct it. And then he followed it up with specific hundreds of thousands of jobs in certain sectors, which was confusing, because if he only added 15,000, saying he added 80,000 or 800,000 in this sector doesn't make much sense. But these are the tinier fumbles, right? Because these ones go by quickly. But I mean, it does add to the general negative vibe on Biden's side.
wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President.
What does that mean? Honestly, this right here is the worst moment of the entire debate for Joe. There was two bad moments where he kind of almost teetered off. The other one, he kind of teetered off and just stopped. This one, he tried to bring it back. Now, I think he beat the threat back to Medicare, because Joe Biden has always been an extremely pro-Medicare president. He's always been a very extremely pro-Social Security president and senator, and just politician generally. So I was assuming, since one of the big attacks from Joe Biden has been that not only Donald Trump, but mostly the people around Donald Trump have made it their mission to gut or privatize Social Security, Medicare, and try to, basically rot it from the inside out. So I think that's probably where he was going, but it just makes it sound like he took a stick to his own beloved institution. And it's really just not a good moment.
Biden.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us, the European nations together.
What's great about this is that Donald Trump, they had already moved on from Ukraine at this point in the debate, and we're going to get through the notes, because again, I have a lot of notes. They had already gotten away from Ukraine. This is Donald Trump going back to the topic of Ukraine, just to emphasize how physically far Ukraine is from the United States. So, I mean, how important to us is it really? I would also say Poland and France and a lot of countries that we went to war in part over uh, were very far from the United States. There hasn't really been a large war in Europe in the last, say, 100 years that we haven't somehow gotten ourselves embroiled in. So I would say, you know, just saying, oh, it's far away doesn't really matter all that much. Afghanistan was far away when 9/11 happened. A lot of countries were far away. Japan was far away when Pearl Harbor happened. I mean, like, just saying a country is far away. Hey, the Barbary pirates were far away when the founding fathers decided we needed to go to war with them to protect the United States assets in like 1814 or whenever it was, right? I mean, there's an ocean, there's a reason that Europe cares about it more, but I don't think that it's really a great point. This is like the least, like, this is me being nitpicky though. There's so much worse stuff he said about Ukraine. We're going to get into it later.
Have spent 100 billion or maybe more than that, less than us.
That's a lie. And this is going to be a theme for this. He said earlier in this debate that we spent over 200 billion on Ukraine. That's a lie. We've spent about 110 billion. So we're talking about like almost 100% difference between the number he's saying we've spent and that we actually spent. And he says multiple times, he said this on the campaign trail and during the debate, so this is a recurring lie of Donald Trump, that we're spending more than the Europeans. And that's why he's emphasizing the ocean dividing us. He's basically saying this matters more to Europe. They need to pay their fair share. Why are we paying the lion's share of the aid? But Europe has, and the thing that's great about this comparison is later on in the debate, he says that Europe has about the same economy as the United States. That was his own economic comparison. Now that's very rough, right? And it depends on what you include in Europe, what you don't include in Europe. But let's just say that's true. Europe has paid more into Ukraine aid than the United States. Europe was also more generally consistent in the paying of Ukraine aid to the United States. The Czech Shell Initiative was kicking off while we were dragging our feet for 6 months of sending over Ukraine aid. There's no world or interpretation, either if we're talking about total contributions, military contributions, bundling everything. There is no math or no subgroup where Europe is sending overall less aid to Ukraine than we are. I think the closest you get, I think, is maybe weapons, but he was saying total, he's just talking money in some. What he's saying here is just a flat out lie. Europe has spent more, period.
Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with
In
NATO?
fact, at one point he was saying this, like Europe was literally paying double than us. Before we passed the 61 billion, they were paying literally double compared to us.
As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak.
This is an insane statement on two fronts, right? And this is something that's mind-boggling to me about this debate, and we're going to touch this theme a lot. Trump's lies don't seem to matter that much when it comes to media and pundit coverage, and being old is a bigger scandal than constantly lying with every breath, even though they're both tremendously old. I do not like this. I think this is in large part due to what the media chooses to emphasize and chooses not to emphasize, either due to ratings or otherwise. But the other thing here is Trump has decided that Palestinian is like an insult now, and he's used it before against Schumer, who is the highest ranking Jewish legislator in the United States. He called him like a Palestinian. He's calling Biden like a Palestinian. This is, and I hate to be the libtard here, horribly racist, horribly bigoted. It's not good to use an ethnic group as an attack on another. Oh, you're like a Ukrainian. Oh, you're like this. Oh, you're like that. It dehumanizes them. It's horrible. It's terrible. It's awful. And this has gotten very little coverage from the mainstream press, but so has a ton of crazy, bloodthirsty rhetoric from American politicians. Sending aid to Israel is one thing. Voting to send aid to Israel is one thing. Supporting Israel is one thing. There's a million different things I could disagree with, like, oh, I disagree with the sending of offensive weapons, da, 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 da. There are certain legislators that since the start of this conflict have made it part of their purpose to go out of their way to dehumanize Palestinians and to advocate violence against them. What was it Lindsey Graham said? bounce the rubble in Gaza, or was that Josh Hawley? It's hard to remember because all of them have put out bloodthirsty statement about Palestinians, but it didn't get much of a reaction from the news media. It didn't get much of a, oh my God, that's disgusting. Rapists and murderers got Trump asked about it time and time and time and time and time and time and time again. How many times have you seen politicians confronted over the horribly bloodthirsty or disgustingly racist or Islamophobic things that they've said about Palestinians? Very little. And in reaction to this debate, it's the same trend, and that trend needs to be broken. Other thing here that's interesting, Joe Biden, leading up to this, was making a ton of points about, you know, making a deal and why his deal with Palestine and Israel and the deal he's pushing forward to bring about peace and a ceasefire is good. He's going out and he's making this point, that point, this point. And he says that Hamas rejected the deal, and it's terrible that Hamas rejected the deal, and Hamas shouldn't reject the deal because peace, yada, yada, yada. Move it over to Donald Trump, and he's like, what do you mean Hamas rejected the deal? Actually, no, Netanyahu and the Israelis don't want a deal, and that's a good thing. And you could just see like the difference on this issue. And you could see some delirious, delusional people on Twitter, Palestine supporters, who are like, yay, Joe Biden got wrecked in this debate. But then like the contrary position here is from Joe Biden, it's, oh, I tried to push forward this peace deal, but Hamas said no, very unfortunate. You go to Donald Trump, he's like, hey, the people said no to peace. That's good. Like it's just the moral fiber difference is so bad. Okay, continuing.
Weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have our strength.
I hate this look Donald Trump gives anytime he's asked a difficult question. He just does the face pucker. He does the face pucker anytime his gears are turning in his head.
Lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO?
Now, this was a decent enough defense of why we should support Ukraine. And with a lot of the better clips that Biden had, this being one of them, is that they're in the later half of the debate when the vast majority of people have gone to sleep. And this is something we're seeing from the Biden campaign as well, as they're saying, hey, we had a rebound in the second half. And that's great and everything, but if most people don't stay awake to watch the second half, how much does that matter? And the people who don't watch it all, they're not going to not tune in the first half and then watch the second half. They're going to watch 6-minute clips like we are right now, and most of the second half might not even be included. The stuff where he performed well might not be included. Certainly, they're going to want to keep in any gaffe that Biden did. Are they going to really want to keep in his eloquent statements about increasing the child tax credit, which I agree with, but of course is going to be not very popular view-wise, even if it is, I would say, substantive policy-wise?
We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about.
After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just...
By the way, let me just throw out there, Donald Trump's big theme about this campaign is retribution. He even tweeted out pictures like, when Donald Trump's campaign is mentioned, what's the big words you think of? And his number one word was revenge. Not even retribution, revenge. And then a bunch of subwords you would expect to associate with the Trump campaign. But the big one was revenge. And he's talked openly about his desire for revenge, who he wants to go after. He said during this debate that he wants to get the people on the J6 committee and arrest them and put them in prison. He's talked about openly arresting other people before. Hell, I mean, this is not a new trend with Trump. He was talking about locking up Hillary Clinton way back in 2015, way before he said he was getting prosecuted for violating campaign finance laws, paying off porn stars that he slept with while his wife was pregnant, or, you know, trying to hide classified documents from the National Archives, etc.
talked about members of the select committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful.
That's not what he meant. That's not what he meant. If you think that's what he means, you're coping and seething, coping, seething.
successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be a success.
Another angle on this debate that I thought was interesting is Joe Biden at one point, after Donald Trump said, like, for the fourth time, like, America sucks, and like a different variety of America sucks. Joe Biden tried to like pick up the America flag, and he like went super patriot, like, this is America. There's nothing we can't set our mind to. There's nothing we can't accomplish. And it's like one of the few times I saw any energy out of him. The other time was when he started talking about Donald Trump calling soldiers losers and suckers to one of his, I think it was a 4-star general, who continues to testify that he did it. Other members of his staff says he doesn't do it. It was a report from The Atlantic. Trump tries to discredit it solely based off the fact that it was a quote from The Atlantic. But I will say one big W for Biden is that a lot of people were Googling that story. And when I say a lot of people were Googling it, I mean, like, we know a lot of people were Googling it, because if you look at the data for what were the big things people were Googling during the debate is, number one, did Trump say losers and suckers? That means calling veterans at a national cemetery losers and suckers. Number two, Trump suckers and losers. Number three, did Trump call veterans losers? Number four, losers and suckers Trump. Number five, Trump find people on both sides. That's in reference to Charlottesville, which I guess people must have forgotten about, but that was a pretty well, I mean, that's been a pretty well covered quote for the past 5-6 years.
But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son.
Can I just say, I think this like attack from Trump is bad. I think it'll always be bad. I don't think it'll go anywhere. I think it's some of the weakest stuff that they have, and they should get rid of it. If I was in the Trump team, I would be telling them to get rid of it sooner. Like, just say that you're being prosecuted, but if you make it about Joe Biden's son for, like, number one, violating a law that a lot of your supporters don't even think should be illegal when it comes to like Second Amendment rights. But even if you disregard that, number two, it's not Joe Biden, it's Joe Biden's son. I just don't think it's a particularly good attack. I understand that it's mostly used as a deflection to kind of move away from the fact that Donald Trump is a convicted felon, but Hunter Biden is not running for president. And if Hunter Biden was on the ballot, I think it'd be a much more effective attack, but it's not Hunter Biden. Like, imagine if for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes out of this debate, Joe Biden like portioned out sections to go after like Laura Trump, or to go after like Ivanka, or to go after, I'm not Laura Trump. Laura Trump hates Trump. A few members of the Trump family doesn't like Trump, but Ivanka Trump. I mean, Jared Kushner would be the one that'd be the most valid, going after the money he took from the Saudi sovereign wealth fund for his investment firm and an industry he had no experience in. I mean, even that would not be as effective as just going after the man himself. I mean, I know you don't hire just a candidate, you hire an administration, and that's one of the reasons why I'm still, I mean, this is not a shocker for anyone, I'm still voting for Joe Biden. But at the end of the day, attack the man himself is a lot more effective.
Son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things.
The idea that I did anything wrong.
Like, I think that's like flailing. Like, the idea like Joe could be a convicted felon. I don't think this works with anybody. I mean, of course, I'm assuming some rationality on the people watching this. I don't necessarily think this is going to like Trump voters are going to say this is dumb, but I don't think that, oh, well, Trump's a convicted felon now, but he says Joe Biden might be a convicted felon in the future for a crime he has yet to be charged with. I just don't think it's effective.
Relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties?
President Biden, you would be 86.
I thought this was one of the few times Biden really dug into him well. When he went into like the specifics of the civil penalties, all the crime stuff. Remember, he's one, I think, good zinger from Biden. And I will say I'm impartial to old folksy sayings. You've got the morality of an alley cat. I thought that was good. And he stacked it on top of the fact that he was cheating on his wife while his wife was pregnant with a porn star. And then Trump went on to deny that he slept with the porn star. I mean, like, we all know he did. I mean, even Trump supporters know he did. I know Trump supporters that try to like flex on the fact that he slept with a porn star. Like, yeah, because he's a G and he's cool. But I mean, I don't really necessarily think that's cool. But like, we all know it, and we have the money transfers from his account, from Trump business accounts, to her account. Like, it's not a mystery. He's been found guilty.
At the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability?
Like, if you're a Trump guy, how do you even explain those payments? Like, we know that he made those payments. His lawyers don't even pretend that he didn't make those payments. How would you explain those payments? He just wanted to like invest in like a young entrepreneurial woman. Like, he was like, oh, I like your go get 'em spirit when you're dealing with those penises. Here's $10,000.
Ability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized as being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs.
See, he corrects to 15 million later, but originally he said 15,000. Thank you for the $5, Appalachian Anarchist. I appreciate that. Here's some money for dealing with the memes. Mematic hazard. Hope all is well. Thank you.
More investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing.
Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one.
To be clear, these were the tests where you looked at like an elephant and said it was an elephant. To be clear.
Like, go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took
Like, question 6 was like, identify the color red. Like, honestly, at this point, Joe should do it. At this point, Joe should do it.
took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good.
Dylan, do I really have to pick between these two? Welcome to democracy. It's about never being truly satisfied. Usually it's not about being this dissatisfied either, though.
Good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 20.
Can I just say, with the stuff where they argued about golf was some of the most out-of-touch nonsense for both of them. Joe shouldn't have said anything about his golf game. Joe shouldn't even implied that he ever played golf. Joe should stay a million miles away from golf and be like, I like baseball. You know, that's what he should be doing. I'm Scranton Joe. That's what he should be doing. He should not be admitting to be within like within miles of a green golf field.
25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive.
By the way, I mean, in comparison to like how Joe performed, obviously he didn't get as much attention, but Donald Trump certainly is not as sharp as he used. These two people are just like 2-3 years apart. It's not, I mean, if somebody says that Joe is too old to be president now, then could someone not logically extend that logic to Donald Trump, who would then be a year older than Joe Biden is now when he would be leaving the presidency? Just something to think about. Anyway, continuing.
Test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
I'm sorry. If somebody said that I've never seen somebody ace the cognitive test where people have to identify the elephant. Brilliant. Okay, brilliant. It's never been done. It's never been done.
You can see.
The doctor said, is that an elephant? And I said, it looks like an elephant to me. And he said, Trump, you're a genius. And I was like, you must be true. You're a doctor. He
is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway.
Here's another problem. Joe Biden whispered everything. He shouldn't have whispered everything. Right after this, And I'll show, you know, we can play like the difference right now, actually. Like right after this, Joe Biden had a campaign event and he had so much more energy. Compare this whispering right here. Listen to this.
Anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds or 235 pounds.
He's so relaxed. He's too relaxed. Way too relaxed. This is actually like a good point to hit Trump on. Like Trump is like clownish when it comes to how he talks about himself. It should be made fun of more, like the best of whatever presidency. I'm the best driver ever. I'm the best this ever. I had the best economy ever. I had the best army ever. I had the best fucking ketchup dispensers during my presidency. Best everything ever. That needs to be made fun of. That like comical, like he's the best golfer ever. He's like 6'4" and like muscular and like super cool. Like all of this needs to be made fun of. As like this insecurity needs to be laughed at. And this is a good moment to laugh at it. Like, oh yes, you're 6'7" and 220 pounds. And like this is a good moment. This is a good avenue of attack from Joe. But the combination of him speaking too softly with his raspy voice and then him allowing Donald Trump to still talk over him, even though we can't hear him. Look, listen, watch this.
Well, you said 6'4".
He's talking to the mic. We can't hear him because this CNN debate was different from the previous CNN debates, the other previous debates, because they made it so that when one person's talking, his mic's on. When the other person talking, their mic's off. They had an actual functioning mute function. And you want to know what? I prefer it that way. They should have this again in the future. I generally speaking like how they moderated it. I still think there should be some more live fact checking and stuff like that. But because Joe Biden is like listening to Trump and like getting prepared to respond to him, he should have just bulldozed over him. He needed to bulldoze over him and just be like, oh yeah, 6'7", 220. Oh yeah, do 20 push-ups right now, Trump. Like did something along those lines instead of immediately backing off. I remember later, for example, Joe Biden's politeness got in the way of him again. And I do think that's at least part of this. He was talking and he was trying to finish his answer and the moderator like cuts him off when he's like 3 words from finishing it. So he just like trails off like purposefully in order to accommodate a moderator that Trump would have like gutted and left in a ditch if he could get a few more polling points. So I'm not saying be too mean to the moderator, but if you need to like blurt out a few words quickly to make sure you finish your sentence and it's cognizant, do that. Running for president, you're running to be president of the United States. This isn't like debate club. You're not going to be, oh, sorry, Mr. President, you talked too long. You've now lost 50,000 votes. It's official. It's like boxing. They just deduct points off your election total. They don't do that. They don't do that.
200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway.
I was going to compare it to like his campaign event. Here it is.
Except he's just a liar. Look, folks, what's going to happen over the next couple of days is they're going to be out there fact checking all the things he said. I can't think of one thing he said that was true. No, I'm not being facetious. But look, we're going to beat this guy. We need to beat this guy. And I need you in order to beat him. You're the people I'm running for.
Like this energy, if he just took some of this energy to be like, ah, yes, perfect golf game, Trump, you know, just the only time I saw any real anger from Trump is when he was talking about from Joe is when he was talking about his son in the burn pits and Trump calling veterans losers and suckers. And that just so happens to be the one time where everybody went to Google and started Googling, did Trump really call veterans losers and suckers? And then they get the Atlantic piece and then they read it and then they learn that he might have very well did so. We don't know for sure though. So like, again, like if he just gave it a little bit more chutzpah, you know, a little bit more energy at some key moments, those clips is what people run with the next day. And he should have made a lot more of those clips by just raising his voice a little bit, being more firm, showing some Scranton backbone.
Just take a look at what he says he is and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down.
Again, I hate this. 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 I know they probably both love it, really, at their heart of hearts, just debating the golf stuff. I hate it. I hate it. Americans hate it. Nobody connects with it. If you feel like politicians are not connected with you and you're disconnected and that they're out of touch, This just doubles it and quadruples it, and like, why?
6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do
I do
it?
like that line, but again, you shouldn't be talking about golf.
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I had, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn.
Let's not act like children.
Like, the one area Joe Biden somewhat won in this debate has to do with substance, and like talking about a golf game with Trump is the least substantive thing he could have possibly done. It comes to like policy stuff and blah. Okay, so I don't know where we should move exactly from here. So I don't know if we go into the responses to the debate or my notes, but I think we're going to start with my notes. Okay. So what I did is I watched the whole debate. That was just 6 minutes, but I don't think that's a good way to just break down a debate. So it's just to like take some of the highlights because it's an hour and a half long experience. So I think we're going to read some of my notes. Okay. We're going to talk about some of the things that I wrote down in my notes because I thought they were notable. Okay. It took me 3.5 hours. So we're going to do some Peepo notes. Okay. Okay. Number 1, Trump claims the numbers for before and after COVID. This is at the 5-minute 48-second mark. I always thought, and I said this earlier, it's just completely ludicrous. Trump claims the job numbers from 2015 until 2020 when he was president, except for the COVID losses. He doesn't accept that. He will not claim those losses. That has to just do with forces completely outside of his control. He couldn't have managed it any better. He then claims the job numbers from the recovery. And he's claimed the black unemployment numbers from under Joe Biden. He's claimed other numbers from under Joe Biden. And instead of saying, hey, look at all these numbers that are good for Joe Biden, Trump simply says, Joe Biden's numbers are my numbers because I gave Joe Biden this economy. But if we ran under this logic, then none of Trump's numbers could be Trump's numbers from 2015 to 2020. It'd be Obama's numbers because Obama gave Trump's economy. He handed over the baton and he ran with it. And if he became president again, you know what? He'd claim all the numbers from 2024 to 2028 and wouldn't give a single year to Joe Biden. I think it's ludicrous. But honestly, it's not only ludicrous. I think it's kind of pathetic. It'd be like Obama gets in 2008, starts claiming Bush's stuff, or and I couldn't. It's hard to compare it because it's him just straight up claiming statistics from an administration he didn't serve in. Okay. Number 2, and this is something I just hate, and this is just something I hate about the Trump era. I'll hate about it until its end. I hate greatest and worst in the world politics. I hate that every economy is either the greatest economy in the world or the worst economy in the world. It's completely destroying people's ability to measure it relative. For example, when I see people saying out loud that they seriously think that they're doing worse today than they were 4 years ago, I want to slap them. And the reason I want to slap them is because in the midst of the throes of the pandemic, when everything was shut down, when nobody was driving to work, like I remember Trump at one point claiming like low CO2 emissions, saying, hey, under my presidency, we had the lowest CO2 emissions of like the last 20 or 30 years or something. What he fails to mention is the period where he had those low CO2 emissions was because of the lockdowns. It was because nobody was driving to work. Yeah, when nobody's driving, I guess the cars don't really exhaust very much because the whole country's shut down, but that's not really something to claim. That's not something to claim at all. But I hate this constant, it's the best economy or the worst economy. It messes up everybody's relative judgment to what is actually a relatively good or relatively bad economy, relatively good inflation, relatively bad inflation. I mean, everybody has a different way of interacting with the economy, so everybody's like personal experience with how the economy is doing is going to be different. But this type of rhetoric just makes it impossible for people to make economic sense of up and down. I thought that Biden did well when it came to talking about how Trump is a deficit president. This is something that you can always hit him hard, and it's hard for Republicans to defend him on because he was the president that expanded the deficit to the highest numbers ever. I thought Trump's response to this, saying, oh, we had to do it, I guess it is what it is. I thought it was really piss poor. I thought Trump's explanation that he was simply going to introduce a 10% tariff on everything to get rid of the deficit was ridiculous. And his response to a reporter asking him, I believe it was Jake Tapper, how is he going to control for the increase on consumers for that 10% tariff was basically, it all amounts to, no, there won't be an increase. which was just crazy. I mean, the idea of like, hey, you want to put a 10% tariff on every good, meaning that every good that enters the United States will have a 10% tariff placed on it. 10% increase right there across the board. How is that not going to impact consumers? How is that not going to mean that distributors, in order to make up the lost profit so they're not selling these goods at a loss, definitely if you do it to all goods that have margins of like 3%, 5%, 6%, not very large margins, how is that not going to be passed down to the consumer, or have the companies that are distributing these or producing these go out of business? And Trump's response is basically just no. It just won't. It was a really bad response, but this is another problem because Biden only hit him hard on it again later at the end of the debate. No troops. This is a lie from Joe Biden that I had to talk about because it's just, I mean, it's a lie. And there were some lies from Joe Biden. One lie from Joe Biden is that that Trump told people to inject bleach. This is technically not true. Trump did suggest that bleach might be a good way to combat COVID that's being reached. It was nonsense. That was nonsense, but it was not telling people to inject bleach. Technically, I mean, it's within the realm of, I understand why he said that, but it's technically not true. And the idea that no troops under Joe Biden's term died anywhere in the world, that was just a flat out lie. We had troops die in Jordan. In fact, Joe Biden called the family members of those troops personally and talked to them. So he talked to the families of dead soldiers. So it's kind of hard for you to say that no soldiers died during your administration if you're calling the families of said dead soldiers. You could say that less soldiers died during the Biden administration, maybe. I'd have to count them all up and figure it out. What Joe Biden should have said is that there's no active wars being fought by the United States anywhere in the world. That would be the victory lap that he could run, because as much as people like to talk about the Afghanistan withdrawal and the fact that we got 100,000 people out, but there was a lot of interpreters we didn't get out, a lot of people that were left behind, not a lot of Americans, but a lot of locals that worked with us that should have been gotten out. Even though when like I see some critique from this from the right, I get suspicious because I know many of them would have advocated for them to be left behind due to their heritage and background, and Trump was the main advocate for banning Muslims from entering the United States. So it's kind of hard for me to believe that he would have been very welcoming to the Afghan refugees that I'm very critical of us leaving behind. But you get the idea. Anyway, we have so many notes here. I don't want to get too caught up. Oh, but he's ended the war in Afghanistan, and it's something he should try to spin more positively, since it was a war that the majority of Americans wanted us to be out of. 1717. Trump says just no to the idea. Oh, I already said this 10% tariff thing. Wild. Oh yes. 8:58. Jake Tapper asked Donald Trump about lowering the increased deficit under his term while also continuing to extend the tax cuts, because Trump said that he's going to get rid of the deficit that he largely expanded by continuing the tax cuts, just saying that the energy of the economy will make it so we actually don't lose more money, which is hogwash. It won't work. It's good that Jake Tapper asked it. I just wanted to give CNN a shout out because it was a good question. Trump lied about millions of people from prisons and mental institutions illegally entering the United States. There is no hard evidence or no data to suggest that there's millions of schizophrenic Mexicans entering America from their mental hospitals. Sorry to disappoint all of the horror writers and the people over at Breitbart News. Biden hit him hard on the deficit. I thought that was good. Largest in a 4-year term was very good. I thought his proposal for a 25% flat tax on billionaires in order to pay for many of the programs he wants to do and get us out of the deficit was also good. Him trying to center that on childcare and elder care was good as well. But then he stutters at the end, and of course that takes a lot of the air out of the attack. And not the attack, but out of the messaging line. This is where he also did the he beat Medicaid line, which made no sense, and Trump hit him on it, and he hit him on it hard. But also then Trump followed that up by saying that Joe Biden is destroying Social Security and Joe Biden is destroying Medicaid because millions of illegals are getting on Social Security and Medicaid, and Joe Biden's putting them on Social Security and Medicaid, which is just a lie because undocumented people cannot get Social Security. You have to be a citizen in order to have Social Security. You cannot be an undocumented person. So that's just a lie. I mean, if you're committing identity fraud and then you get a fake Social Security number, or you're stealing somebody's identity, then there's a situation where you might be able to engage in Social Security fraud. But the idea that Joe Biden is putting on these people on Social Security, no, they'd have to commit crime and steal it in order to do that. Dylan, you have the morals of an alley cat. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Donald Trump responded well to the abortion pill answer, but the rest of the Roe v. Wade debate, and I'm saying this honestly, I think Joe Biden did very well. I think Joe Biden hit him hard on Roe v. Wade. I don't think it was difficult for Joe Biden to hit him hard on Roe v. Wade, because Donald Trump stood up there and continued to defend overturning Roe v. Wade, and that is very unpopular. The majority of Americans wanted to keep Roe v. Wade. It was law of the land for 51 years. It was the norm in our country. It's certainly something that energizes Democratic voters. And something that's interesting about this debate is that Joe Biden actually fundraised much more off of it than Donald Trump, which people have been surprised by. Donald Trump was able to raise $8 million off of yesterday's debate. Joe Biden was able to raise at least $14 million last time I checked. So almost double what Donald Trump was able to raise. And some people have been asking how that's possible after Joe Biden gave a kind of old man performance. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the type of stuff that Donald Trump defended while he was up there, like defending his overturning of Roe v. Wade, his defending of certain states deciding to go forward with, banning abortion, and his just ramblings about like late-term abortion. If anybody's ever had to go through the horrible experience of a late-term abortion before, because the life of the mother was in danger, which is where these cases are going from, obviously that would maybe push you to not only be against Donald Trump, maybe you go and contribute to Joe Biden, contribute to the person who's running against them. So a lot of those donations might not necessarily even be for Joe Biden, more than they might be against Donald Trump, which has always been one of Joe Biden's biggest fuels during his time in office, has just been anti-Trumpism, because a lot of people do not like the MAGA movement. Biden was also good to push back on Trump's legal scholar claims. Trump kept saying that all the legal scholars agree that Roe versus Wade have to be overturned, which is not true. It's just a lie. When it was instituted 51 years ago, legal scholars believed it should have been instituted. Some disagreed. And the same was true when it was overturned, that there were certain legal scholars that believed it had to be overturned, and there was others that disagreed. Donald Trump's just lying, which is, again, is a theme here. It's a theme. Every issue is a border issue. The whole night, Donald Trump was trying to pivot to the border. Whatever it is, if they were talking about Social Security, it's illegal immigrants destroying Social Security. If they're talking about Medicare, it's illegal immigrants destroying Medicare. If you're talking about child care, elder care, if you're talking about Roe versus Wade, if you're talking about anything, it's all illegal immigrants, illegal immigrants, illegal immigrants. That's all it is. I remember at one point, like, Trump started talking about like the rapists and criminals, and then Jake Tapper responded, "Don't worry, Trump, we're going to talk about immigration later," which I don't think that was purposeful, but that did throw me for a loop. But every issue is the border issue. But also, this is probably why Donald Trump didn't want there to be a solution to the border crisis. He didn't want there to be a settlement with the Biden administration, even after one was negotiated between James Lankford and Chris Murphy. That was acceptable to both Senate teams. But if that was made, if a deal was made and the crossings went down, which Joe Biden took executive action and some of the crossings have come down, then that could hurt Donald Trump's electoral chances. Definitely, if this is the big thing he's going to come back to on every single issue. So I think it helps explain that. I'm going through everything, by the way. I'm going through everything. I'm going through all the notes. We're going to be thorough. Trump then proceeded to double down on his abortion lies. Biden responded well to it. I just generally think Biden did well in the Roe v. Wade section. I think he was the strongest section. But again, would be the strongest section for any Democrat that has any brain cells to rub together. So this is a weird section because Joe Biden says that the Border Patrol endorsed him, which isn't true. That's technically a lie. But what he meant was that the Border Patrol Union endorsed him, which is true. That is true. At one point, Donald Trump starts talking about the terrorists he's killed. Because I think it was because, and maybe I'm forgetting up the timeline, because Joe Biden brought up the fact that terrorists actually crossed the border under Donald Trump's presidency, and then Donald Trump was trying to talk about all the terrorists he killed, and he said al-Baghdadi, and then he said Soleimani, And I listened to him like he killed al-Baghdadi. That's the head of ISIS. I know that. And Soleimani. Who the hell is Soleimani? And I was trying to think, is this like some Hezbollah guy I didn't know? Was this like, and then I was like, oh, he means Soleimani. He means the head of the IRGC's Revolutionary Guards Forces, Quds Force. That's what he means. He means the head of the Quds Force. Oh my goodness. He just didn't know the name at all. And he replaced all of the like O's with A's, whatever. Continuing. They have a back and forth about whether Donald Trump said that veterans are losers and suckers if they die for their country. One 4-star general that knew Trump said yes. A bunch of other people that are Trump's lackeys have said no. It's impossible to say for sure. It comes from an old Atlantic article. But this gets brought up every time because it's a moment that would particularly make Donald Trump look good. I mean, look bad. Joe Biden says we've done more for vets than any administration in U.S. history. This is a Trumpism. I don't like Trumpisms, but is Joe Biden just concluding the fact that Trumpisms are politics now? Like everything's either the best or the worst, so might as well claim we're the best. Because if we're not claiming them the best, then people might be thinking, oh, okay, if they're not saying they're really good, then they must be not really good at all. I don't know. I mean, they have done a lot when it comes to the issue of burn pits and Agent Orange and issues like that, but I haven't really sat down to measure the Biden administration's policy on veterans compared to previous administrations. But it's just a tall claim, and it needed more to back it up if they're going to make it. Because if you don't back it up, then it's just another Trumpism. Okay, at 28:14, we get to the Ukraine section. I'm sorry we're taking so long, but hey, I'm giving you in-depth debate coverage. At 28:14, they finally get to the Ukraine section. So let's go through this because there's a lot here. So number one, Donald Trump says this wouldn't have happened under him, and his main evidence he gives for why it wouldn't have was Afghanistan, basically insinuating the fact that the withdrawal from Afghanistan directly led to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because the Russians saw this withdrawal from Afghanistan, saw it did not go all hunky-dory, and came to the conclusion that America's weak and we can invade Ukraine and it won't be a problem. Now, the first problem that immediately blows this up is the timeline doesn't work, because where scholars believe Putin had already made the decision to invade and we started to see the major moves, for example, moving of blood samples or blood transfusion equipment to the border, which you do not use for training operations, you only use for combat operations because those are for your medics if people get shot. Those types of decisions were being made before the withdrawal from Afghanistan was even underway and or completed. So the timeline doesn't really work. But also, even if the timeline did work, Donald Trump did none of the effort to connect the two. He just basically made the idea that Joe Biden was weak here, therefore the Russians thought he was weak, therefore that's why they invaded. When there could be a million other factors at play. From, well, it could be that the Russians saw the Russian government, it has an aging leader going into his 70s now, Vladimir Putin, and he's worried about his legacy. It could be that the Ukrainians have, obviously now we can see, been improving their military capability and they wanted to strike before they were too weak to be conquered. It could have been that the Ukrainian economy was headed in a more positive direction, and so they wanted to jump in before it was more of an economic engine. It could have been that they wanted, I mean, it could be any number of things that pushed the Russians. It could be ideological, and it's almost certainly ideological. I would say it is ideological. There's a million different things. All I'm saying is he did not make a good case for it. And I don't think there's much of a case for it, honestly. Trump says people need to triple the death count to understand the war. This really pissed me off because this is just Trump lying about the amount of people who died in order to make a political point, and I find it distasteful. I find it gross. The idea, it's because the numbers that are being talked about, like on the Ukrainian side, are like 500,000 casualties on the Russian side, right? That's a massive amount of casualties. I don't even know if that's true. It would depend on like how loosely you define casualties. Like if a light like flesh wound would also be interpreted, definitely if they've already been redeployed in like a few weeks, or I don't know. But if he was to say that all those numbers are bogus and you have to triple it to get to the real number, I mean, we're talking like over 1 million dead and going towards 2 million, like 3 million. We're talking like, I mean, we're getting near like horrific data number, like figures that are hard to wrap your mind around, but also have no backing. This is just him expanding the catastrophe while also wanting to do and little about it, and having actively blocked the process of trying to send Ukraine what it needs to defend itself, of actively catastrophizing the war while trying to use it for political points. I don't like using corpses like that. I think it's very gross. It is a lie. The death toll is not 3 times higher than the numbers that we have. Especially because I don't even know if I trust the numbers we have to say if they're too high. Not to say that not a lot of people are dying, just to say that these numbers are completely unrealistic that Trump are proposing. Biden encouraged the Russians to go in. Have no clue what he's saying in reference to this. I guess maybe he means encouraged through his weakness, but Trump is the only person who has actively, openly, verbally encouraged the Russians to invade any country, and that was on the campaign trail this year. Look it up. Also, Trump never answered the question during the first round, and this is something that Trump did multiple times. He would keep dodging the question. The question that started the Ukraine section was Putin's offer of annexing more lands and annexing all of the territory they currently hold acceptable to you? And Trump didn't answer it until the moderator, after he rambled about all these other things, asked the question again, and he was forced to answer it, and he said, yeah, I guess not. Which, I mean, it was a no, which is good, but, I mean, he didn't really want to answer it. Says Israel wouldn't have been attacked on his watch. Again, like, he has no clue. Hamas hated him. Hamas hated Biden. The Trump proposal for peace in the Middle East that got nowhere in Palestine was something that really pissed him off. The moving of the embassy to Jerusalem was something that really pissed him off. The idea that Trump had some magic hold over the Palestinians or magic hold over Hamas that would have stopped them from attacking. No, it's not true. Biden at 31-18 gets Trump and Putin confused. Not a good moment. Didn't get noticed much, but I noticed it because I was really perked up during the Ukraine section. When Trump did follow up, he said that Putin's terms were not acceptable. Trump says that Biden gave $200 billion to Ukraine. That's a lie. The number isn't even close to that. I think it's roughly half of that. Also, most of it was like not even weapons. It was, I mean, money. It was weapons. A lot of it old equipment that we don't use anymore. Vietnam era, like the M1333. I think it's the M103 troop carrier. Biden does follow up on this, but I mean, I don't know how strong he was in making the point. Trump also promised to settle the war before he takes office. I just don't believe him. I don't believe him. I saw reports that possibly Trump and Russian officials could have met up because their planes were in the same location and that they could have had a meeting. That is entirely possible, but I just don't believe that he has a plan. I don't believe that he had a plan when he originally said he had a plan, and I still don't believe he has a plan yet. I believe there might be people around him with a plan that might throw a plan at him as the presidency comes forward, but the idea that he can guarantee, as he is promising, that the war will be over by the time he gets into the White House, it is fantasy. He is not going to complete the most complex negotiations the world is seeing right now, just like as an alley-oop. It's ridiculous. He didn't really explain how he was going to get there. He just said he was going to do it. Also, I do want to point out that Trump did go out of his way to divert back to Ukraine just to emphasize his distance from America. Also, he said that America paid 100% of the payments into NATO. That's not true. That's also a lie. It's 70%, still a lot, but it's not 100%, obviously. He calls Biden a Palestinian. I've already said earlier why I thought this is disgusting. What else we got? Oh, this is one of my favorite Trump quotes on veterans. They like me more than him. And that's based on every bit of information. I love that source. Every bit of information. I wish I could source that. Guys, I'm right in this debate. Why are you right, Dylan? Every bit of information. Every bit of information. That's why I'm right. Trump says that America is now laughed at to dodge question. This type of stuff happened a lot. Says he's being prosecuted. He repeats the Nancy Pelosi story about troops at the Capitol, which is a lie. The soldiers being deployed would be under his priority. He wanted to punish the Capitol. He wanted to punish the political class for not keeping him in power. Biden hits Trump for treating the J6 traitors as victims and to commute their sentences. I thought it was a good point. I don't think he hit him hard enough on it. Trump nodded when called a convicted felon. He didn't fight back against it. He just said he was being persecuted, but he said that, you're a convicted felon. And he went, yeah, yeah. And that wasn't the only time it happened. It was also brought up when it was like, hey, you cheated on your wife with a porn star while she was pregnant. And then he went, yeah, I guess, yeah, right. You got to give it to you. And I mean, on one hand, it's good that he admitted it, so we can the Biden campaign once they can play that on loop. But on the other hand, Trump does have the scary feature of just letting everything roll off of his back. And so maybe he just is of the belief that, hey, if I just say, sure, yeah, I guess I'm a felon, I'm a criminal, then it'll just roll off of his back. I guess that might be the strategy. What was interesting is, though, after this, instead of really arguing the facts of the case, because you can't really argue the facts of the case, and the longer Trump talks about paying off a porn star, the worse it's going to be, Trump instead just suggested that Joe Biden himself might be a future convicted felon. He didn't talk about what crimes it would be. He just started talking about Hunter Biden and Burisma, which, there's not really much substance to that, and there certainly isn't anything that can pin a crime on Joe Biden, but he just started throwing that out there. Trump also nodded while Biden talked about him molesting and cheating. Not just cheating, he also nodded on the molesting. This is also where Joe Biden had his famous "you have the morals of an alley cat" moment. Trump then claimed he still didn't have sex with her. Kind of sad to do that at this point. I thought one of Biden's better points that he brought up is why none of Trump's former staffers will endorse him, because so many of them will not. Dozens and dozens and dozens of them will not. The super predators for 10 years thing is a lie. This is a favorite Trump quote of mine. This is in response to a question about climate change. I want immaculate water. We had it. We had H2O. Beautiful. Biden bringing up the $50 billion investment under his administration to HBCUs was good, historically black colleges and universities. But honestly, this only appeals to a certain type of black voter, and I'm not trying to be those black votes are important too. But it only appeals to a certain type of black voter. And there's other black voters, more working class, uncollege educated black voters that Biden needs to mobilize, needs to appeal to, that him and his campaign repeating the statistic will not communicate to. I mean, this will help certain people vote for him and will certainly attract some people, and people will Google it and be like, oh, that's good. But he needs to broaden that support. He needs to broaden it. Trump's claims about the Paris Climate Accord money was a lie. Biden stopped during a good run from the moderator at 01:05:34. The follow-up was good, though, when it came to Social Security and Pell Grants. The undocumented people destroying Social Security was a lie from Trump. Trump then started throwing a hissy fit and says that there shouldn't even be a debate, and then rambled after it. This is shortly after this. Biden had his patriotism counter when he started waving the flag in response to Trump calling America dumb in a million different ways. The child tax credit got a shout out. This wasn't a particularly good moment, but I just wanted to say that it got a shout out because it's good that it got a shout out. Biden hits Trump's on tariffs an hour after the point was originally brought up. And my main visual ick from this debate would be Joe Biden needs to close his mouth. Joe Biden, not talk, but Joe Biden needs to close his mouth when he's not speaking. Because Joe Biden had this thing during the debates where he would look over at Donald Trump and he would open his mouth like this. And sometimes it would be okay because he was smiling because something silly was said, but when he wasn't, and his mouth would just open off to the side and he was like this. It just did not look good, and it made him look 10 years older. It honestly made him look 10 years older. Okay, I've gone through all the notes. I've gone through everything that I thought was of note or of import from the debate. I mean, at least enough to write down and want to talk about. So now that you have more, I guess you've gotten a lot of my thoughts from the debate, let me gather them all together. I think Joe Biden did better when it came to policy. I think Joe Biden also lied a lot less than Donald Trump. There's a few things when it came to the specifics of the bleach claim, when it came to no soldiers dying, when he could have just said no wars under our watch. The lion's share of the lies was on Donald Trump's side. The policy, I do think was, the lion's share of the lies was on Donald Trump's side. The policy W's was on Biden's side. But generally speaking, if the main concern people have about a candidate is their age, and then they proceed to fumble and bumble, get numbers mixed up, kind of like tap her off when answering questions, when they do answer questions coherently, doing it in an extremely raspy voice or keeping the voice very low, and then every moment when they're not speaking, when you look at them, their mouth is agape like, that it doesn't inspire confidence. It does not inspire confidence on that issue if that is his biggest issue on the campaign trail, is his competence. And look, I am of the belief that there is two types of competences as a politician. You can be a competent governor and administrator, like the same skills that it takes to make a good debate performance and to make a good trade negotiation or to make a good regulatory policy or to name a good fucking mailbox, whatever it is very different. And I mean, I have no reason to believe that Joe Biden cannot do the basics of governing. I have not seen anything when it comes to the decisions he's made as president or how he's made decisions as president that would take away from that. There's certain things where I'm like, why hasn't he been quicker to, approve ATACMS strikes in Russia against targets bombing Ukraine? Like, there's specific stuff that I could go in there when it comes to, he needs to be more forceful when it comes to the idea of public health care, specifically a public option, which he campaigned on back in 2020, if anybody remembers that. But when it comes to the legislating and the governing aspect, I have no reason to believe that he can't get that done. And we have Republican testimony from people like former Majority Leader McCarthy that says that he is still sharp when it comes to negotiations. But running a media campaign or doing a debate performance against somebody who's a constant liar, who, and this is a big thing during this debate, jumps from topic to topic to topic to topic to topic to topic very quickly, is not the same skill set as what it takes to sit down and make a calculated 25-minute decision about a trade deal. And so Joe Biden could very well be able to rule the country for another 4 years. In fact, I still haven't been convinced that he cannot, and I still think he can. But running for president is very different than running the country. And you can have the skills to run for president, not have the skills to run the country, just like you can have the skills to run for president and not have the skills to run the country either. And right now, when it comes to at least the debating aspect, it didn't seem that he was ready for that debate at all. Not when it comes to policy substance, but when it comes to how aggressive he should have been, when it comes to him like petering off at the end of the conversations, when it comes to him just like is it gotta whisper in every answer, and it just was not good. It just wasn't good. It was a bad performance. The polling data suggests it was a bad performance. Now I think that gauging how bad a performance is difficult. I'm gonna wait until there's more data to be out. It did not do what Joe Biden needed to do, but Donald Trump also did not perform exceptionally well either. A lot of the undecided voters that a lot of these news agencies gathered together, when asked about how Donald Trump performed, said he came off crazy, which he did, whether it was on the issue of Roe versus Wade, whether on the issue of revenge, whether it was on a lot of these issues. He did not come off particularly well either, but he came off as feisty. He came off like he could scrap. He came off like he could throw down. Now, none of these are necessarily the qualities of a good legislator or a good administrator or a good president or somebody who can make policy or a good leader, but it is certainly the trait of a good campaigner. It is certainly the trait of a good politician running for office. And so, honestly, I think that this was not a good night for Joe Biden. I think that the Joe Biden campaign, while they did fundraise a lot off of this, a lot of that fundraising was probably off of either Donald Trump, and so people do not want him to be president, so they're going to go for whoever is not Donald Trump, or B, if they're not fundraising off of Donald Trump, fundraising off the idea of, oh, damn, we need to help Joe Biden get over the line, which would have been the reason why I would have donated for Joe Biden at a stage like this. As for the idea that this was disastrous, or this is like the end of the Joe Biden campaign, and this shows that Joe Biden cannot, be president, I think, there's a difference between running for president and being president. And I think he can be president. I have not been shown any substantial evidence that he cannot be president. I can disagree with certain decisions he's made, still believe he made them cognitively, which even Republican leadership has been saying up to very recently that he was able to do. But whether or not he's a good campaigner for president, that's a totally different question. I think if we could go back in time and choose someone else, and I wanted Bernie, which he's old, but he still doesn't have, he's not showing that age when it comes to the campaign trail. But then again, he's also not running for president right now. Maybe it'd be different if he was. I didn't want Joe Biden originally, not only because I don't agree with a lot of, I'm much more progressive than Joe Biden, but also I didn't know if he could beat Donald Trump. Turns out he could beat Donald Trump. Can he beat Donald Trump again? That I'm not positive of. I'm not positive of it. I think he can. I still think he has the ability to. But there's a few things I want to put out there that I'm basing this off of. Number one, Donald Trump is a convicted felon. Number two, Donald Trump has a whole base of people who hate him for being him and will always hate him for being him. Whoever is running against him is always going to have that boost. Number three, Joe Biden has been making a lot of investments into courting the elder vote, which he lost by 5 points during the Trump administration. If he can flip that by 5 points or really just win it, period, that's a huge boost to him. And if he can win independents and he can win the suburban vote, then that's a huge boost to them. I still don't believe that pathway has completely crumbled. I also do believe that the Joe Biden campaign could make the decision to just not do another debate again and just stick to the normal campaign appearances, because when they have the normal campaign appearances, from what I saw, he does perfectly fine. In fact, right after this debate, he went like around and he shook the hands of voters like way into the AM. I think it was like 2 or 3 AM. And so he seems to be able to be on the campaign trail perfectly fine, going to Waffle Houses and the such like that. The next day, he did speeches, and these were the type of speeches he was doing.
Thank you, North Carolina. I get in trouble with my mom looking down in heaven if I don't say, please excuse my back. I apologize. It's good knowing you have my back. Eric, thanks for that introduction. We had a wonderful time spending time with your sons, Kristen and Carter. We're going to grow up to be incredible young men. You would have been really impressed the way they talked about their dad, how informed they were about what was going on. I was truly impressed. And I ate 2 hamburgers.
And I ate 2 hamburgers. That's a good Bidenism. But here's the big line that everybody's talking about. C-SPAN reposted it. Everybody else reposted it. And you can not only see the energy that he has here, and it's like a totally different man almost. It feels like a totally different man. See, it feels a lot less, well, I guess the only word I can use is frail in these clips. But you can also see the messaging that they're going for in response to the debate, which seems to be widely recognized in the Biden camp as not a good time.
Let me close with this. I know I'm not a young man. State the obvious. Well, I know. Well, I don't. Folks, I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth. I know right from wrong. And I know how
how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
If this Joe Biden runs for president, I think he can win. The question is, we don't know when we turn on the TV if we're going to get this Joe Biden or we're going to get the Joe Biden we saw at the debates. If this Joe Biden debated Donald Trump and he was able to go back and spar sharply with him, then he would have done fine yesterday. Because the second half of the debate, he did better. I don't know if he sat down with staffers midway in and they told him, you know, they splashed water in his face, got to get rid of the bruises. Like, you're losing him, Joe. Get back out there. Hit him hard. And that's what he needed, because I've seen these waves where people will be like, oh, it seems like Joe's too old. Then out of nowhere, for like a month, he'll start making like strong speeches like this again. Maybe it's staffers every once in a while telling him like, Joe, you need to energize, pick it up a notch. Maybe it was staffers, younger staffers, trying to fill his numbers with like HBCU funding data and like the impacts of the 10% tariff Trump was proposing. And when Trump's out there just shooting everything from the hip, not caring if anything's true or not true, worst presidency ever, $200 billion to Ukraine, just like this, that. And he's out there trying to think of like the HBCU data that some like 24-year-old staffer just gave him on a piece of paper before the debate. Then maybe he starts fumbling. It's hard to calculate all of the possibilities that could have led to yesterday being what yesterday was. Well, then today being this. Maybe it's the fact that at these events, teleprompters are going to be a lot more useful. And Joe Biden can more clearly like, okay, here's the string of thoughts that we have pre-organized beforehand. I can read them all out. And then he can just choose to add some emphasis with some yelling. It could be that, you know, when you're not being just jolted around from topic to topic to topic to topic, and then within each topic, you're jolted to 3 separate topics, because that's how Donald Trump debates, covered with lies, that it's just much easier. Like, here's a question. Do you think if Joe Biden was debating Mitt Romney, he would have had a better time or a worse time? That's a question. I think that maybe, like, I think Joe Biden's data, overall polling data would be worse, but I think he would have had a better performance. Just because I don't think that Mitt Romney debates in the same kind of sporadic, chaotic way, and it'd be much easier for somebody to follow the conversation. Sometimes, unironically, it was difficult for me to follow what Donald Trump was saying because he was just jumping around and going from topic to topic so much. Either way, there has to be some calculus within the Democratic Party. Is this the Joe Biden we can keep on the campaign trail consistently? Put aside the idea of another debate with Trump. Right now, I don't even want to think of that idea. If they can consistently get this Joe Biden, then maybe they can consider another debate with Trump to try to right the wrong. But they're never going to be able to undo the damage completely. People saw the first debate. Many will not feel the need to watch the second debate. About 85 million people tuned in across all channels, online and on TV to watch. I doubt them being able to tune out 90 million or 80 million or even 70 million for the second debate. But if they can get this Joe Biden out there on the campaign trail for the next 4 to 5 months, it's a lot of days to election day. And that's something I need to make clear to you guys too. In the immediate aftermath of Trump being convicted as a felon, he took a real dip in the polls. He got hit hard in the media sphere. You had people around him who were kind of nervous. They had a general rally around the flag effect. But there were people around him nervous, like, man, should we really have ran with the convicted felon? Same thing happened when his place in Mar-a-Lago got raided. Then a month and a half passed, and here we are. And now it feels like, oh, okay, now Joe Biden's sinking. He's donezo. It's over. It's Jover is the word that I saw that was trending on Twitter. And again, I'm back to the conclusion. It's like 4 or 5 months to election day. And the next like half month, we could find out that Rudy Giuliani is embroiled in another financial scandal that goes all the way back to like that fucking harem that Donald Trump had in Mar-a-Lago or something. Like, we have no clue because Trump gets embroiled in so many scandals. He was just found guilty as a convicted felon. He's got the classified documents case still coming up. On top of the classified documents case, he also has the obstruction case when it comes to the election and J6 and everything. He's got a lot coming up against him on the legal front, and that's besides all the crazy stuff he's saying on the campaign trail every day. The problem with Donald Trump, though, is that it's normalized. Like, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Here's what Donald Trump is saying on the campaign trail just today.
These guys, you'll never get them done. You'll never get them done. They don't have any clue. All they know is electric. They want electric army tanks. They want electric planes. What happens if the sun isn't shining while you're up in the air? Well, sir, I told you there'd be problems, sir. No, they want electric everything. They want electric boats. The problem, the boats, they don't float because the battery is so heavy, it sinks the boat. They say, we don't care, we want them anyway.
Dude, what is he talking about? Solar panels on the is that how he thinks it'll? They would charge it before it fly. It doesn't matter. This type of stuff is every day with Trump, but it gets very little attention because Trump is default clown mode. And if he's default clown mode, it's not a news story when he goes clown mode. But when Joe Biden's old, it's not treated the same way. It isn't treated the same way. Not at all. Now, all I'm going to throw out there is this. I think consistently lying during the debate while also degenerating like this live on TV for everyone to see, this is the Sharpie hurricane guy, is more of a scandal than fumbling and mumbling your way through a debate. Now, that's me. I still know who I would be picking in this election out of the two going into election day. But whether that's how the general public feels is another question. I mean, I already went through a lot of the debates, a lot of the lies and stuff like that. Would it be worth it for me to go through like the lies one by one? I know the Biden-Harris campaign made a list of all 50 of Trump's lies during the debate. CNN provided a 3-minute compilation of all of the lies that Donald Trump said during the debate. We can play a little bit of it. I don't know if we'll play the whole thing.
Trump list. It is way, way longer. So deep breath. He said some Democratic states.
Clear. They had a Joe Biden list too. And I saw Charlie Kirk posted it. It was 49 seconds. Donald Trump's was 3 minutes. And I remember Charlie Kirk's message was like the devastating Joe Biden lie list. And it was like, Trump didn't tell people to inject bleach. He just said that bleach might actually work as a da-da-da-da. It was like, well, you know, when Joe Biden says that no soldiers died on his watch, what he meant was that there was no active wars under his watch. And this is what Trump was throwing out there. For 3 minutes, Charlie said nothing about this.
Allow people to execute babies after birth, an egregious lie that is illegal in every state.
Oh, I forgot about that. He did say that. He just said like my opponents are executing babies. Just complete nonsense. Again, any other campaign, it would be a scandal on its face.
He said everybody, even Democrats, wanted Roe v. Wade overturned. Roe was supported by 2/3 of Americans, even more Democrats. He said every legal scholar wanted Roe overturned, abortion returned to the states. Legal scholars have told me directly this is not true. He said the U.S. currently has the biggest budget deficit ever. No, that happened under Trump in 2020. He said the U.S. currently has a record trade deficit with China. That also happened under Trump in 2018. He said Biden personally gets a lot of money from China. Zero evidence of this. He said there were no terror attacks during his presidency. In fact, there were multiple attacks. He said Iran didn't fund Hamas, Hezbollah, other terror groups under his presidency. Iran, in fact, did. He said Biden wants to quadruple people's taxes. That is pure fiction. He said the U.S. has provided way more aid to Ukraine than Europe had. It's actually the opposite. He said the U.S. has provided about $200 billion in Ukraine aid. It's closer to $110 billion. He said 18 or 19 million people have crossed the border under Biden. That is millions too high. He said many of these migrants are from prisons or mental institutions. His own campaign cannot corroborate this. He said Biden has only created jobs for illegal immigrants. Total nonsense. He said Nancy Pelosi turned down his offer of 10,000 National Guard troops on January 6th. There's no evidence she even got such an offer. It was the president, not Pelosi, who had the power to deploy the D.C. Guard. He said Pelosi now acknowledges she turned down the troops. No, her office tells me this claim is still a lie. He said he deployed the National Guard to Minneapolis in 2020. Actually, that was the Democratic governor. He spoke of, quote, ridiculous fraud in the 2020 election. Zero evidence of any widespread fraud. He said NATO was going out of business before he took office. Completely, clearly absurd. He said the U.S. was paying 100% of NATO before he came along. The U.S. made up about 71% of NATO defense spending, not 100. He said he, not Biden, is the one who lowered insulin prices in Medicare. He did it for some seniors, but Biden did it for far more. He said Biden indicted him. Again, no evidence Biden has had a personal role in any of these 4 prosecutions. He said Europe takes no U.S. cars. Just not true. He spoke of food prices quadrupling under Biden. That's a wild exaggeration, though they are up. He said Biden Biden made up the idea he called dead service members suckers and losers? No, the Atlantic magazine reported that, and then former Trump Chief of Staff John Kelly corroborated it. He said Biden called black people, quote, super predators for 10 years. Biden never once deployed that phrase, let alone for 10 years, though he did at least once speak of, quote, predators without specifying it was about black people. He said his Trump tax cut was the largest in U.S. history. Not true, though, in fairness, Biden also said this. Trump said China and others stopped buying from Iran under him. China never stopped. He revived his pet lie, I don't know how many times I've done it, that he signed the Veterans Choice Program into law. Barack Obama did that in 2014. Trump signed an expanded version in 2018. And finally, Trump said Biden got rid of that Veterans Program. Biden has not done that.
Just like lie after lie after lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. I mean, I don't want to break down anymore. We already talked about some other ones. I do want to throw a few things out there before we wrap up this segment, right? Because the first thing is Joe Biden going to drop out? Because I saw, like, for example, Mike Johnson saying his cabinet needs to invoke the 25th Amendment. And for those of you who don't know what the 25th Amendment is, it's an amendment where members of your cabinet could claim that the president not mentally competent enough to rule, so they remove him and replace him with someone. That's not going to happen. Again, we have seen no evidence that Joe Biden is not competent enough to rule. It's a question of how competent he is to run a traditional presidential campaign. But this right here is also true, that there's a ton of Biden sympathizing columnists and commentators that are questioning whether Joe Biden can run in 2024, if he has the ability to run, if he should step down, etc. That's not going to happen. Whether he should is one question, and we can answer it in a second, but it's not going to happen. Hillary Clinton has joined the wagon encirclement. Barack Obama has, Bill Clinton has, Joe Biden reportedly still wants him to run. And these are all the people that could actually whisper in his ear and probably tell him, like, yo, time to go. J.B. Pritzker is not going to make that decision. John Tester isn't going to make that decision. Gavin Newsom is not going to make that decision. Buttigieg is not going to make that decision. Kamala Harris certainly is not going to be making that decision. These are going to be the people who are whispering in his ear that are going to have the most influence, and all of them seem to be circling wagons. Here's a quote from Barack Obama. "Bad debate nights happen. Trust me, I know. But this election is still a choice between someone who has fought for ordinary folks his entire life and someone who only cares about himself. Between someone who tells the truth, who knows right from wrong, and will give it to the American people straight, and someone who lies through his teeth for his own benefit. Last night did it change that, and that's why so much is at stake in November." And from Joe Biden's campaign appearance, which we have already looked at today, again, I have no reason to believe that they are dropping out. Now, would that be the right move? Well, I would say 6-7 months ago, almost certainly it would be the right move. And I wanted always somebody more progressive than Joe Biden. I would have settled for somebody more progressive this time around too. But also, Joe Biden is the only candidate that has beaten Donald Trump. So I think for a lot of people, the idea of getting rid of him when he's the only one that we know for sure has beaten Donald Trump after Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump was a tall order. It would take a lot of convincing. And now that we've gotten this close, now the concern has reached its peak with this debate performance, but it's also within like a month of the national convention, if that, and 4 months until election day. And so the question would be, in the 4 months between now and election day, could we get American voters introduced well enough with an alternative candidate, with that alternative candidate almost certainly being Kamala Harris? Now, why do I say Kamala Harris instead of, say, Gavin Newsom or the other candidates? Well, there's a few reasons, but I'll number it down to 2. The first reason is that in order for it to be anyone else, you would have to explicitly have Joe Biden jump over Kamala Harris. Because in the line of succession, it goes Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. So if it goes Joe Biden chooses Gavin Newsom, everybody's going to notice that they jumped over Kamala. What does that mean for Kamala's political aspects? What does that mean for how the administration views Kamala? What does that mean for the voters that would be irked from Kamala's group? Because Kamala does have a K-Hive base. There's a bunch of reasons why it would be a problem for the Biden administration. That's the first reason why it would be Kamala. The second reason it would be Kamala is technically, if I and I believe I am correct here, I do not believe Gavin Newsom would be able to access the Biden fundraise campaign funds. Biden administration has fundraised, I believe, probably like $230 million for the 2024 presidential campaign. That's quite a war chest. Most of it has not been spent yet. They've been saving it. And let me just say now, after tonight's performance, now would be a good time to start spending it. But that war chest could not just be handed over to whoever runs for president. It would have to be on the same ticket. And the only other person on the ticket, it's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Biden, Harris. So she is technically, legally speaking, the only one that could actually access those campaign funds. And so if Gavin Newsom or somebody else was to run for president, they would have to, so to speak, start from scratch. Maybe it wouldn't be 100% starting from scratch, but I believe that I'm right here when it comes to who would be able to access the campaign funds. And so it would be the problem of skipping Kamala Harris compounded by the fact that they would have to start over. And so even though I don't think Kamala Harris is a good candidate, if they were to choose somebody else, she has those advantages on her side. Okay. So if I do boil it down to Joe Biden versus Kamala Harris, do I think that if they were to switch over to Kamala Harris at this point, that it would up their electability that much? No. I mean, it would already be an issue with it being this close. People would have to get to know to Kamala Harris, but also Kamala Harris has not gotten a lot of positive attention this administration. Like the highest high-profile foreign policy visit she made, which was representing the United States at the Ukraine Peace Conference, got barely any media attention. She has not seen her approval rating go up during her time as VP. Not many people know what she has done as VP. That's not to say she hasn't done anything. It's just either due to a lack of media coverage, a lack of good media teams with the Biden administration. Not many people know. I just don't think Kamala Harris would be a good candidate. And I've seen her run for president before. I have no reason to believe it'd be any different than how she was running for president before. I mean, I guess now she's not running against a Democrat in the primary, but I've seen her campaign before. I've seen her mannerisms. I see how she interacts with voters. I do not think that she is an exceptionally gifted candidate who could quickly recover from the hit that the Democratic ticket would inevitably take from having to make this switch so late into the campaign. If they had dropped out before, they could have talked about the possibility of a cancer diagnosis and Joe Biden's health problems and other stuff, and it could have been a lot less dicey. But now that it's post-debate, it's impossible if you were to drop out now for Joe Biden to say it doesn't have to do with his ability to campaign, with his ability to run for president. It's impossible for him to do that. If they tried to, it would just look like they were covering for it. And so that inevitably is going to come with a hit. The question is, does that shift from Biden to Kamala cost more or less than if they were to just stay as is and ride it out? I honestly cannot tell you. I do not think Kamala Harris is a particularly good candidate. I do not think that we could really afford to start from scratch when it comes to fundraising, though. I certainly do not think that. And all of the people that we're talking about bringing nationally, like Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker, who I do think would probably be better candidates than Joe Biden, have not been nationally tested, where Joe Biden has been nationally tested. But remember when Ron DeSantis was talked about as the great, bring a harbinger of death and destruction upon progressive politics and the Democrats on the federal level, and he will be Trump without the baggage of Trump. And then he face planted terribly. Primaries are the places where those types of kinks and problems are supposed to be dealt with. Here, 4 months out from the election, stuff like that can be disastrous. Absolutely disastrous. So it comes with risk. It comes with a lot of risk, which is probably why these Democrats are circling the wagons right now and holding out, at least for the polling data to come back to see how the voters are really reacting to it, or if in the large part, people saw how crazy Trump was, and maybe it's more of a wash as a debate because they saw how crazy Trump was, or it's only a few points in favor of Donald Trump. Like, if the clouds clear a month from now and Joe Biden has basically returned to where he was polling wise before, and nothing's really changed, then Democrats could just say, okay, hunker down, spend this campaign dough, and stick on things like Roe v. Wade and strong suits for the Democrats, hit Donald Trump on his weaknesses, and maybe we can sail to victory on election day. That could be the strategy. But until we have more concrete polling data, until we have more information from focus groups, you're probably not going to see any decisions from the White House. You're probably not going to see any withdrawals from the White House. I don't think the scenario of them doing it is likely in the first place, but if they are going to make that decision, they're not making that decision within 24 hours of the debate. It's going to be within a few weeks of the debate when they've tried every other possible option due to the risks that comes with switching a candidate this late. Which I will say is also the smart thing to do. Do not immediately react to the social media feed's reaction to the presidential debates. Wait for the data to come out. Wait to see how people interpreted Trump stuff. Because Trump did not do that well either. And not only did he not do well, I don't think he came off well either. If you look at the polling data, the immediate polling data from CNN and other outlets about how many people actually got moved on this debate, that means they were going to vote for one person, and now they're going to vote for the other. Or they didn't know who they're going to vote for, and now they know who they're going to vote for. That was only 5%. Now, 5% out of the millions of the people who watched could be quite substantial. Or it could just be like end up being 3% because there's a margin of error there and it's much smaller. And we're only talking about the people who watch the debate, not of all the people who will vote or all the people in the country. Point is that I do not believe it is the nail in the coffin, but it very well could be the church bell if this is a sign of things to come and they do not get the Biden train back on track or pull the emergency brakes. But no decisions will be made like that on that for at least a few more weeks as they wait for the rest of the data to come in and they think of all possible other strategies. Because currently, Joe Biden's strategy is saying, yeah, I guess I'm old, but Trump is way worse. I care about democracy. Democracy's good. I love democracy. And that might work, but I gotta say, it makes the playing field a lot more even between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, the convicted felon and Joe Biden. What was that one tweet I saw that kind of encapsulated? Oh, here it is. It's time for America to accept that Joe Biden is the perfect candidate. Today, it's so over, and we're so back world. True. Also, if you're talking about Joe Biden dropping out, I do want to throw this one last little corn cob in the mix. You should also be talking about Donald Trump dropping out because the majority of Americans want both to drop out. The polling data on this is clear, and it's been clear since April of this year. How are you voting? 53% said Democrat, 35% said not a U.S. citizen on my Euro cucks in chat. Hello. 7% said independent, and 3% said Republican. I have a very Biden chat. And most of you think Biden should drop out.